I believe you can be better. I've been called many things because I believe that you can be better as an individual, that regardless of your background, your foreground can be bright. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Timothy Miller, and welcome back. What I have for you today is a simple idea, maybe even think about it differently for myself, of an idea that I've been holding consistently throughout the many videos that I've produced. Whatever the quality that you may have perceived them to be at. And the idea is simply this. I don't care about your race, creed, color, nationality, or sex. Because there was an idea that I got really pissed off about with the news, and you know what? Instead of being pissed off at the news, I'd rather do something productive with what's going on. If I feel pissed off, you know what? Maybe I can use that towards something that's greater. So I think this is a really good opportune time for me to rethink, reanalyze the ideas that I hold to be true. So the ideas are for race, creed, color, nationality, or sex. A statement that I have said consistently was, I don't care about your race, creed, color, nationality, or sex. I'm going to treat you as an individual. Your character, competence, and contribution matters more than your identity. And I was thinking, and I've been saying it multiple times, but something clicked. That when I say about these immutable traits or characteristics that you may have, your race, creed, color, nationality, or sex, that I would normally say that I would have normally said that they would be immutable. They are the way that they are. You can't change them. But no, you can change them. And because I was arguing with myself. I was arguing with myself about a particular topic as though I'm being my own devil's advocate, arguing someone to be against and actually defending something at the exact same time, simultaneously, some people would say. And I was thinking about race. A few ideas that I had probably within this week was, does a certain race have to have a certain characteristic? Now, there are certain races, let's just go with the Jewish race. The Jewish race, not the religion or the culture. What is that word? Culture. The race of the Jews. Let's just go with that. Oh, no, the Irish. Let's go with Irish people. Because I don't really know much about Jews. Irish people, more stereotype, that's typical of the back of my brain. I can pull some very bigoted ideas off, so we can just throw them against the wall. With the Irish people, is someone who is Irish, do they have to have red hair? Do they have to have brown hair? Can they have blonde hair? Can somebody who is Irish have blue eyes? Now, as a statement to that is it physical appearance? Is that what makes somebody a certain race? Because I guess race and color would go hand in hand. I was arguing in my head with Michael Dyson, Reverend Dyson, the person who debated Jordan Peterson. Wonderful debate on 1791, and I believe Jordan Peterson also posted the video as well, of Jordan Peterson debating for against political correctness, while the other side was debating for political correctness. And I'm assuming it's Michael Dyson. It's a wonderful opportunity to actually look it up, rather than just continue on with an assumption that I don't really know. Michael Dyson. I don't really like that guy. With Michael Dyson, it's for himself to identify as a black person and then to express himself, and like, because I'm black, therefore these opinions are more valid because my experience, my relativity, you can relate with me that I am also black, but I'm curious. Can I also identify as black? Is it a certain skin color? Because there are very light-skinned black people that, again, my platoon sergeant in the military, he was mistaken as Mexican or Mexican at the grocery store on base, or not on base, but probably somewhere on a military base, and there was just one mother who's like the typical Mexican mother. She's wonderful, she was very polite, but she just mistaken him because of his skin color, and he was buying tacos that one night. It was hilarious. He was a very humble person, but he's the old school military guy, so you don't piss him off. But he was mistaken because of his color. So my question is, does a certain race have to be a certain color? Can I identify as black? Do I have to have a certain characteristic that is typical of that, of a black person? Does a black person have to have, which is my point. Does a black person have to have a particular trait? Now, if I identify as black, then therefore you and I, we have the exact same identity. I identify as a black woman, transgender of amputee. It's like, does an amputee actually have to have a limb gone? How much of a limb has to be gone for them to be an amputee? Do they have to have all 5 fingers? What if all 5 fingers, what degree at which is it? For everything being on a spectrum, gender being on a spectrum, when we start making things being on a spectrum, there's no lines to be drawn or any lines of demarcation to separate so we can understand the world better. Because we don't work on a spectrum. Our brains work much more complicatedly, but the way to make it function best is to make things simpler, not more complicated. If everything is on a spectrum, if at any point that we want to understand the entire realm of spectrum, we would have to go into each and every single, line of demarcation. Each and every single sector, section, fragment, and understand it more. And it becomes more complicated. Rather than just saying man and woman, there's also man, woman, intersex. But then there's man, woman, intersex, and then 72 other genders. It's like, wait, what? That would complicate it. That makes it more difficult. You don't eat an elephant within one bite. Or you don't eat your food in one bite. You eat it with one little bit at a time. A spoonful, not a handful. A handful would make us, choke and gag, and we would probably, it won't go well. But if we just do a little bit at a time. And regardless of whether or not gender is different from sex, that's not the point that I'm trying to get to, is that with race, creed, color, nationality, or sex, race, creed, color, and then I added another one. It's like, what? So with creed, I originally thought that your creed, your religion, is immutable. I was mistaken. I was mistaken in saying that your creed, whatever it is that you believe in, whatever doctrine you follow, that is what is immutable. I was mistaken. Can you be atheist one day, Christian the next? Can you be Christian one day, then atheist the next? Now, regardless of, just because you don't believe in God doesn't make God not exist. Doesn't make God any less real or fake than he is, she. Just because you don't believe doesn't make it not true. I don't believe in gravity. Gravity exists. So that's my one question too. It's my one statement. It's not a question. Just because you don't believe that I can become a greater human being doesn't mean that I can't become a greater human being. Just because you don't want something to happen doesn't mean that it can't or won't happen. Just because your belief in your father doesn't exist, like I don't have a father, I don't even have a mother, doesn't mean that there wasn't a father and a mother at one time in your life. Now with color, it goes the same thing with race, but nationality. You can be born from one place, but you can adopt or move into another culture, nation. You can get around a certain different border and live in a different place. So I was wrong. I always thought it was immutable. And let's go with the last one of sex. Now sex, not gender, it's very interesting who transsexuals who want to switch to the other gender, where I'm following this one. I'm a man, but I want to be more like a woman, genetic woman, not a feel-good woman, gender-wise. I want to be an actual, like, sexually oriented woman. So I'm going to make myself more feminine. Huh. Interesting how that works. How there's actually a strong correlation between the two. Now, I would have normally said that I don't care about your race, creed, color, nationality, or sex, and I was mistaken. Now, here's the wonderful bit that if any person who says, going down this line of questioning, here's the thought that started this entire conversation for myself. I don't care about your race, creed, color, nationality, or sex. I want to treat you as an individual. And then it was going on a race. Well, it's like, well, because I don't care about race, therefore I'm a racist because I'm not considering the marginalization of black or Hispanic people. It's like, well, wait, I don't care about your race. I'm going to treat you as an individual. Your competence, character, and contribution matter so much more. Now, do I have my own bias? Everybody has their own bias. But just because you have a bias doesn't make you a racist. Just because you have a bias doesn't make you a bigot. Just because you are a character, doesn't mean that you have much character at all. And so on and so forth. And the thing is, what about race? Okay, well, if at any point that they bring up race, if I say I don't care about your race, creed, color, nationality, or sex, or whatever it is that I may have said, or may say in the future, is, okay, if I'm not focusing on these people who have been marginalized, well, I'm the marginalized group you're talking about. I identify as them. And then they say, no, you're not. The only question that would puzzle them, at least the one that I'm thinking of as of right now, is, so A, you're judging me on my appearance, you're taking my past and assuming my present and future. And then thirdly, well, this is not really a question, I guess it is, do I have to feel and act a certain way because of my race? Do Asian people have to act like what you think Asian people should act like, or can they act however they want to? And the answer is, well, that sort of backs up in the corner. Intellectually, consistent ideology. We are not consistent creatures, but I want consistency. That's what I need for myself. That's why I'm going down this line of questioning. If at any point that they say, well, Asian people have to act Asian, they are immediately a racist. Immediately. I mean, expressively. They already are. But you back them up in the corner. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Record it, put it online, share it. Boom, you're done. But if at any point that they say, no, just because you're black or you're white or you're Hispanic or you're Japanese, just because you have any of these, or you're, or not Islamic, but from the Islamic states, I don't know, Turkish, let's go with Turkish. Just because you're that origin, that race, doesn't mean you have to act or feel a certain way. You can do whatever you want. And here's the question. Okay, fine, then I am the marginalized people. But the thing that they can only go towards is, well, no, you're white. Why are you looking at my appearance and not how I feel? Why are you not accepting it? Because you're not feeling or acting like a marginalized person. So, what do you mean? So black people are marginalized? All black people are marginalized. So they're supposed to feel a certain way. So there's a demand for them, as a bigot and racist, to expect these people to be less than who they actually could be. Really creepy how actual racists are in the guise of not being racist. It's frightening. It really is. And it's that insanity which makes it hilarious. It's the insanity part of, oh my gosh, people who are in support of abortion value the human child, but 3 seconds before the birth, they were nothing. You could dismantle them, you could take them apart, you could harvest them for parts. But after they're born, we have to respect them. Why can't we respect them beforehand? You're against the woman! What? There's no consistency. It's like, each and every single part with the leftist ideology has a grain of truth that is very important. But when you start connecting the dots, I apologize for my language, trigger warning, it's a clusterfuck. There's no consistency. You have to separate things so you can understand your own religion, your own belief in leftist ideology. It's frightening. I'm against the right in many political natures. How big do we need to make the government? The Federal Reserve is not a public service. It is a private organization. It is a private bank. So why are we giving so much power? Well, I don't want much power. Well, as a Republican, you should probably be doing this, this, and this, rather than just whining, bitching, moaning, complaining. That's one aspect I have with the right. With the left, actual racists, actual bigot, doctrination. Now, with creed, color, nationality, and sex. Now, sex, I guess that's the last part, is that you can actually change whoever it is that you are. I'm going to end off with this. I know that I went off into many rabbit trails and rabbit holes, and hopefully you followed me. If not, welcome. Welcome to the ending of this video. Also, please put your comments, questions, concerns. I would love to hear back from you. I don't care what happened in your past. Regardless, which I probably should start saying more, is that regardless of your prior race, creed, color, nationality, or sex, or he or she, whoever you identify as right now. See, now that I even said it aloud, I'm now considering and changing my own answer. It's quite frightening in a good way that I have to change internally. Now that's a really good statement. That's actually what I wanted to end off on. And okay, let's go with that. For somebody who at any point that I bring up the race, creed, color, nationality, or sex argument factor, if I bring up these things as being immutable, someone then states that these 5 things, race, creed, color, nationality, and sex, can be mutable and are mutable. They can be changed. They are changeable. My then next statement is this, and something that I would love to implore, I would love to suggest, to the best of my ability, shake my fist, dance and swing and maybe even jump up in the air, to implore you to bring up this one statement. If these things, race, creed, color, nationality, and sex, are mutable, doesn't that mean the individual people are mutable? So if they're feeling bad, if they're feeling marginalized, they don't have to. They can change themselves. If you're feeling bad, you don't have to feel bad, because it's mutable, it's changeable. Now, where does the change come from? Well, it comes from, as the leftist would immediately put, and I wouldn't say leftist, I would say all people, including myself. Most people have an inclination that there is more power outside of us because our own sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, that is what we can experience. That's what we're perceiving. It's harder to go in here and question yourself because ego, in the mind, wants to remain the same. Ego, the center of all the universe, is in here. It's a unconscious bias that we all have, very subtly. And when we start to point out, it's like, no, I'm perfect. It's like, I would say that first about myself as well. To make us survive. Now, again, with family and tribe, that's what we're connected to. We're connected to this. Our egos work together, so I'm now willing to sacrifice my stuff for you. And likewise. Now, not all the time does that work perfectly. It's a very simple framework we can use to start understanding the world in a greater sense. Okay, simple things to get us started, and we can make it more complicated along the way. But if you are not where you want to be, start simple, start one place, start 2, 3, or 4. And if 4 is complicated, go down to 3, go down to 2, go down to 1, but you gotta start somewhere. If we can change ourselves, if we are mutable, who is in charge of that mutability? Who is in charge? Who is responsible for that? And my question is, whoever's responsible, don't they own you? If you agree that it is external, that people other than yourself, because you yourself, being a very singular creature, not have much power in comparison to 2, 3, 4, 5, then that would beg the question is, if you justify, specific word, justify, define, justify, to demonstrate or prove to be just, right, or valid, to validate, to make correct, that's my own word, to declare free of blame, absolved, free, human, no. I don't know what the last 2 didn't work in my framework, so I'm rejecting them. I reject your reality. I institute my own. To make right, to make in your head correct, regardless of whether or not it is. That, I was going to do a drum roll, but I sort of lost my train of thought. No, let's see if I can get right back there. To justify, let me pause it. I'll come back to this. Thank you. It took like 5-10 seconds, but it was weird. To justify that the external, other people grant you power, to validate that as a good, an emotional feeling that it is a valid form of thinking, a valid form of feeling. Because if people accept and validate that other people are responsible for them, they own that person, whoever. The group owns the individual. Which, I'm going to pause right there and say, no. The individual has power. In comparison, it may be so minuscule. In comparison. Because when 10 people want something versus 1, 10 people... there is a quote from an entrepreneur. I don't remember his name, but the quote goes as such. I would rather have, it was like Henry Ford. I think it was Henry Ford. I would rather have the productivity of 1% of productivity from each of 100 men rather than 100% of my own. I would rather have 1% productivity of each of 100 men rather than 100% of my own. It makes it, I don't know why specifically, but I think that carries a lot of weight. Just because, again, 100% productivity, let me take that out of context. Let's put that to the side. Regardless of how much power you may have in comparison, Brad Pitt has a lot more power than I. Just the appearance. And maybe even the character, the class, maybe his own influence is much greater. His money, his potency, his historical records are much more potent than I. It doesn't negate the potential that exists. Only those of which who believe in the potential make the potential happen. That is why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The poor see their environment, they believe that nothing is working, therefore their future has nothing for them. While the people who have success, they look around them, I only see success, success then follows, because that's the only path that they see. Doesn't mean that nobody has any struggles or nobody has any successes. It says that, oh, what is my consistent way of thinking and my framework that I'm living this life in? What is the emotional stability? What am I, not stability of that I'm only going to feel this, but when I feel this, does that mean that I have to automatically feel this thing right after, in sequence, in procession, a process, procedural, going in order? So, regardless of your race, creed, color, nationality, or sex, I believe you can be better. Whoa. I've been called a racist, bigot, and homophobe, and actually a Nazi. I believe a Nazi, where I'm just making that stuff up. But the other things, I actually have Facebook recordings. I posted. I made recordings and put them on my computer. I've been called many things because I believe that you can be better as an individual, that regardless of your background, your foreground can be bright. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Smith Miller, and you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye now.